Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. LSU spring football is underway out on the Ponderosa. They started things up on Tuesday, and they'll continue to work out coming up tomorrow, and the media will be allowed in. I wanted to kind of talk about some of the position groups of note here. And when Brian Kelly got the job at Notre Dame, at LSU from Notre Dame, and we kind of started to look into the trends at that program. He had been there such a long time that there was really enough evidence that you could kind of see what things went very well, what things didn't go as well. And two of the places that you would immediately look in his tenure there at Notre Dame were the offensive line, where they were churning out big-time NFL prospects, and tight end, where Notre Dame just had a great run of really good college tight ends that were drafted in the NFL. Certainly started in the Brian Kelly area with Tyler Eifert, who was a first-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals. But there were many, many more. Troy Nicholas was a second-round pick out of Notre Dame at tight end to the Arizona Cardinals. Ben Koyak was a draft pick at tight end to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even more recent, Durham Smythe was a fourth-round pick of the Miami Dolphins. Alize Mack was a pick of the Saints in the seventh round. Cole Kmet has had a really good career, was a second-round pick to the Bears. And then most recently, you saw Tommy Tremble, who was a third-round pick. And then, of course, Michael Mayer, who was a really, really good tight end who went in the second round to the Raiders. There were 6 or 7 tight ends drafted from Notre Dame in a decade run for Brian Kelly. That's incredible production during a time where the league, both college and the NFL, were spreading the field more and getting more 4 and 5 wide receivers out there and getting in the shotgun and spreading the field instead of running the play action stuff quite as much. And still, Notre Dame was producing great tight ends. And the ironic thing is that Brian Kelly shows up here, and Eric Gilbert has moved on and transferred out. And then you had Cole Taylor transfer out, and you looked up and you're like, well, we don't have any more tight ends. We got this kid whose dad was really good in Mason Taylor, and we don't really know how good he is. And that's kind of it. So Jack Mashburn, you go play tight end. I know you were a quarterback at St. Paul's, and you're a walk-on, but you're going to play tight end for us. And that's all they had. And now, as he enters his third season, you look at that tight end room and you go, oh, yeah, this is the ticket here. You've got Mason Taylor coming back for his third year. And Mason Taylor has not been he's been a wildly productive player for LSU at tight end. I mean, you're looking at a guy who has started 25 games in his 2 years. He's made 74 catches. He's rolled up nearly 800 yards receiving, catching it at about 10 a catch, about 30 yards a game, and 4 touchdowns in his 2 career, including the most famous one, the one to beat Alabama. But he's a quality blocker, a good route runner. He's got sure hands. He makes catches on third down. He's been a really, really nice piece. And that's awesome. But the guys that LSU has brought in since then have a higher ceiling than Mason Taylor. Mac Markway is bigger and more physical. He doesn't run quite as well, but we saw how physical he can be just as a freshman last year. Kamorian Pimpton is Inspector Gadget in terms of his arms. There aren't a lot of things you can tell from going out to practice and watching him run through cones. You can tell Kamorian Pimpton is really tall and his arms are absurd. He didn't factor in last year as a true freshman, as you would imagine, with Mason Taylor there and with Markway doing the things that he did. But I think that there's reason to believe there's really good football in his future in Baton Rouge. And so you've got that very, very healthy dynamic of a junior 2-year starter leading the way, 2 guys who got their feet wet last year that have really high upside behind him, and then you bring in the most talented dude of them all in this freshman class. And that's from right here in LSU's backyard with Trey'Dez Green. And I don't know if Trey'Dez Green can put his hand in the dirt and get after an SEC defensive end or outside linebacker with some help from a tackle. I don't know. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. I'm not really sure. My instincts tell me today, probably not something you want to deal with. But I can tell you, speaking of things people don't want to deal with, linebackers and safeties don't want to deal with him because he's huge and he's probably a better athlete than them. I can't speak to every single linebacker and safety in the Southeastern Conference. There are a few of those, but strong majority not fit to run and jump with Trey Green. Most of them aren't fit to run and jump with Cormorian Pimpton either. And it'd be one thing if this was a Mason Taylor situation from 2 years ago where you had to have them come in and just figure it out. You don't. You can put them in advantageous spots. You can bring them along as quickly or as slowly as you want because you've got the stalwarts there who are older. But as I look at LSU's wide receiving group, and you would say, okay, Kyron Lacey, good 3. Are you a 1? I'm not sure. You would look at the 2 transfers you brought in, and you would go, pretty productive where you were. Are you ready to be a number 2 or a number 1 receiver in the SEC? I'm not sure. Chris Hilton, great speed. Really excited to see him in a full spring and in a fall camp. Can you emerge and use that speed to become one of the best home run hitters in the league? I don't know. Maybe not. Shelton Sampson, you ready to roll? I'm not sure. Kyle Parker? Well, there's a lot of talent, but there's question marks. Well, while you're figuring that out at wide receiver, you've got a bevy of options here at tight end that can help Garrett Nussmeier out. And while it was really fun last year to spread the field, get the defense as wide as possible so that Jayden Daniels could just do kind of whatever he wanted in space, maybe it doesn't quite look like that this year with Garrett Nussmeier. Maybe you need some help with the tight end, both pass blocking, run blocking, and then being a big threat in the play action, short game, third down situations. If that is the case and you need to rely on the tight ends a little bit more, this is a position group I'm ready to rely on. I think they have stocked the shelves excellently at tight end. And it's funny because the 2 positions that were in the worst shape when Brian Kelly got here were offensive line and tight end. I would argue pretty vehemently those are the healthiest 2 positions on the team now. There are some other spots that need some attention, and you're well aware, interior defensive line, secondary play, we got it. But the 2 positions you probably don't have to worry about out of all the ones on the field, offensive line and tight end. And what do we say when Brian Kelly got the job? Offensive line, tight end. It's a track record thing, and it's a positive that you can lean on that if you're a fan of LSU. I'm excited to see those guys out there, especially the younger ones moving around a little bit this spring. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.